Hello, welcome to bigbandtheory.net, and these are rock trivia questions. So our first question is to name at least 3 lead vocalists that a rock band was named after. Of course, then they're in it. So try to name 3 rock bands that is named after the lead singer. Pause. Okay. So I could only think of about 6. So I had John Bon Jovi of Bon Jovi, Dokken, Daryl Dokken of the band Dokken, Winger. We have Ronnie James Dio, the band Dio, the Greg Ken band, Greg Ken of course, and then the Steve Miller band. And he not only is he lead singer and a lead guitarist, so that's going to be one of the answers to another question also. So it's the Steve Miller Band. Okay, next question is copycat names. There seems to be a few rock bands that have a similar name than another rock band. So I thought of 3 names of iconic bands that have other bands that have similar names. So can you think of at least one rock band that used part of a name of another rock band? Pause. Okay, so the 3 I came up with is, first we have Queen, but then all of a sudden there's a heavy metal band, Queensryche, and there's another band called Queen of the Stone Age. So how is Queen used so many times? I have no idea. Another one is Rush, and there's a band called Mahogany Rush. Now this even gets more curious. They were started at approximately the same time, one in 1968 and one in 1969. But crazy enough, Mahogany Rush was started a year earlier. Then, if it doesn't get crazier, they both came out of Canada. So I can't figure out who copied who, if it was just a coincidence. But it seems like a weird coincidence, the same time in Canada, both having the word Rush. Next and last, the only one I could think of was the Monkees, and then many, many years later, the Arctic Monkeys. So those were the 3 I thought of. I'm sure there's others, but that was the answer. Okay, next question, bigbandtheory.net, rock trivia. So in the 20th century, which is the 1900s, there was 2 giant iconic songs. So of giant songs, there was 2 songs. One was about heaven and one was about hell. And they almost collide in their meaning. So you have to name the 2 songs that collide, gigantic songs, which one was about hell and what band, which one was about heaven and what band. Pause. Okay, first came Stairway to Heaven. This was such a big, iconic song that music stores had to put, please don't play Stairway to Heaven any longer. And it was really a thing. Every guitarist had to learn Stairway to Heaven. Stairway to Heaven pictures a narrow path, stairways, you work, you go, and eventually you ascend into heaven. Okay, the second song was by AC/DC, Highway to Hell. Picture of a wide freeway, cars racing 100 miles an hour into destruction. So one is a picture of a wide, speedy way to get to hell. Everybody's invited, everybody's headed there in no time. Another one, a small, narrow way, a stairwell, if you will, that ascends to heaven. So it's ironic that they are opposing and colliding views, both iconic songs, one about heaven, one about hell. Okay, next question. This is bigbandtheory.net, and we have lots of different things you can log on and read about bands and the origins of band names. Well, this is a question that I'm going to go with 3-member rock bands, and then you have to guess 3 different bands. So I'm going to give you the categories: bands from US, bands from Canada, and then bands from UK. So you have to at least name one 3-member band from Canada, one 3-member name band from US, and one 3-member band name from the UK. Pause. Okay, so let's start with Canada. So Canada, I could only think of 2 iconic bands, rock bands, and of course everybody knows Rush, Geddy Lee, amazing bass player and singer, Eric Libson, and of course Neil Peart. And they're, again, from Canada. The second one, another great band, great guitarist, great vocalist, is in the band Triumph. And his name is Rick Emmett, but it is the band Triumph. So hopefully you got one of those 2, and I'm sure there's more if you got one in Canada. Those 2 were the ones that popped out. Now in the US, we have a little bit longer list there. We have ZZ Top from Texas, Nirvana from Seattle, James Gang, which of course featured I can't think of his name. I'll think of it here in a second. Then we have Grand Funk Railroad and the Jimi Hendrix Experience. So that was the US bands that I thought of. So then we jump over to UK, and we have Emerson, Lake and Palmer, Keith Emerson, Greg Lake, Carl Palmer. We have The Police, and we have Cream with Eric Clapton. So those, hopefully you got one of those names, and by the way, it just came to me, Joe Walsh from James Gang, and now tours with Eagles, not the Eagles, tours with Eagles, and had a great solo career. Okay, next question is, this has to do with a band, and the band is a lead guitarist that first played with Journey, but who did he play with? An iconic guitarist. Who did he play with before he played with Journey? And he was even in Woodstock. So name that player. Pause. Okay, so you probably guessed who it was. Neil Schon, not Schon, Neil Schon from Journey. When he was younger, he was the rhythm guitarist for Carlos Santana. And Santana was in Woodstock, and Neil Schon played there. So there's the answer to that. Speaking along that lines, the next trivia question has to do with bands named after lead guitarists. So this is, again, bigbandtheory.net, and I want to see if you can name 1, 2, or 3 bands that were named strictly after the lead guitarist. One is not so strictly, but we'll give some leeway. Pause. Okay, the first one is one I just mentioned earlier, Carlos Santana. So there's always been a Santana band, a lot of different singers, but of course named after Carlos Santana, which you know his guitar style as soon as you hear it. Some of the others are Montrose, Ronnie Montrose. His first singer was Sammy Hagar. Another one, Eddie Van Halen, or Van Halen, even though Alex was named Van Halen also. And funny enough, his second singer was Sammy Hagar. Some of the other bands, we have Lynch Mob, and we have the Steve Morse Band, we have Michael Schenker of MSG, and the one that's in both categories, we have Steve Miller Band. So I'm not sure if he's in the category that was named after the lead singer or the lead guitarist, but we're going to give him the only one we could think of that's in both categories. Okay, next question in bigbandtheory.net, rock trivia questions, is which music artist, this goes a little bit out of the rock genre, so famous musicians, has or held at one point the Guinness Book of World Records to hold out a saxophone note, one note, without ever stopping, for how long, and who was it? And it had to be during a live presentation of people. Pause. Okay, well, it was one of the most famous saxophone players ever, which is Kenny G. And Kenny G could actually do circular breathing, where you're breathing in with your nose, you're holding air in your mouth and blowing out at the same time. You could verify the exact time, but it was like 49 minutes. So the blowing your mind is 49 minutes. Most of us will pick 5 minutes or under, because that's all you can hold your breath. So Kenny G. And by the way, I want to give props to Kenny G, because a lot of people think he's a sappy saxophone player, when he's really just a fantastic saxophone player that happens to play a little bit of sappy music. Okay, so next is a trivia question, big band theory, is what lead singers can hit the highest notes? And I haven't checked out which notes and how high someone could hit, but I thought of two singers that blow my mind as far as hitting high notes, and I even have a third singer that I'm going to add to the list. Pause. Okay, the first one is, if you ever listen to Living on a Prayer, Bon Jovi, if you think the verse is high, then he hits the chorus. It's outrageous how high he's singing. I don't even know how anybody hit those notes. So in my mind, those are the highest notes I've ever heard. However, some of the stuff Freddie Mercury hits from Queen is just unbelievable. And then my third singer, who sings so high he doesn't even have falsetto, is John Elefante. So when he sings, it's all in his natural voice. It's so high, he doesn't have falsetto, and he doesn't need it. So those are the answers there.